Iburu, Iboya, Ibuche, everybody in Cyberland. Is it fair Bawalao? At least I hope so. Homo Odun, Dile Que coming at you with something special. I think a lot of times people enter this faith, right, blindly. And I know in our culture, we like to preach, and this is just culturally within mankind, right? Not within our faith, but mankind has a tendency to go into things blindly when it comes to faith, when it comes to God, when it comes to divinities, and that's a beautiful thing. However, I think understanding the aspects and the philosophy of our faith is more important as you begin to take your journey step by step. For example, we have people that receive their warriors. You have people who receive their mano de orula, which is awofaka for men and ikofa for women. That represents the sign that they were given, or the sign that they chose to take when they were in what we will call heaven, in the foot of God, and told God, I want to go back to earth and I want to handle X, Y, and Z under this sign, this odung in mano de orula, awofaka for men, ikofa for women, right? Different name, but we just need to make sure that we keep the terminologies right. So that happens, and they transmit themselves into the womb of a woman who will birth them. Within that womb is the vortex, right? It's pretty much the pathway from when they said, hey, God, here's where I want to do, here's where I'm going to go. God, being who he is, all great, says, all right, go, shoot. So we understand our journey when we decided to come to earth. 1. 2, when we took that journey, we forgot some things. And there's a lot of patakis and a lot of oduns that talk within our philosophy on why we forgot those things. And it was pretty much issue being issue, right? Kind of cut that bridge between what we call heaven and the womb. So when that energy came flying down, it was very hard on the ori. All right? And there's a dark spot if you look within science. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not claiming to be, I'm a bawalao speaking Ifa. There's darkness within the brain, right? There's a cortex in there that has no light, it's darkness. And in there is one speck of electricity or something that sparks when you do a CAT scan. That is what we awake when we talk about our Ori. So let's understand within our faith how we're supposed to take these steps within this faith in order for us to truly grasp and nurture the full potential and energy of what this faith can offer. So, within the womb, the baby is formed. Please understand that when that energy came down, right, which was at the foot of God, they said, I want to go down and I want to live life X, Y, and Z. And Odun was attached to them and they came flying down. Even in heaven, there's people that still have to acknowledge the Osolbu. Okay? And when I say Osolbu, I want people to understand that Osolbu is the bad, the negative, the crooked, okay, to a certain extent. Even up there, think about my name, think about your name. We all have names. Think about one that's called Aron, or one that's called, it doesn't matter. You name it, you get it. But in those essences, let's say you have a problem up here and you try to escape it down on earth, and that problem follows you, right? And now there's another energy that's flying down. You can't escape certain things. And in our faith, we believe that as well. That's why it's very important for you to understand your awofaka and ikofa for women, so that you can understand how to combat these challenges, these osolbu. Okay? And when we say that, we talk about understanding your Ita. So everybody who received their mano de orula understand that there were signs within kines that were passed out, and they were marked within a opung, a tablet of Ifa, right? And in that Ita, you were giving a lot of advice. That's a lot of what I do now today. Is I tell people, hey, your mano de orula says this. You need to follow X, Y, and Z in order for you to accomplish what you've been destined to accomplish. Why you came from heaven down, because you said you were going to accomplish something. And my job is to remind you what was the pack and deal you had up there. That's what Ifa allows us to understand. So, how is this all rolled up the moment you're born? The moment you're born to about, let's say, the age of 25. And I take this philosophy from a good mentor of mine that I work with and I learn with. And we talk about the fact that the first 25 years-ish, right? Let's just go there. There's a lot of things that change when you turn 25. Up to 25, hell, your auto insurance even drops. But from 0 to 25, you're going through school. You're learning mannerisms. You're learning right and wrong. You're learning ethics, morals. You're learning a lot of different aspects of what life is. Okay? You're being introduced to the opposite sex. You're being introduced to emotions, and your puberty hits. And there's a lot of moving pieces. Your body is still changing and shifting. That's why they tell people that mainly when you turn about 18, right, you stop growing, things change. Your voice changes. Everything changes for you. But for all intents and purposes, we're going to mark the line at 25. At 25, we like to understand that our Ori is now awoken. This is why a lot of people in our faith, especially couples who santeros, santeras, babalaos, whatever, right? When they have babies, they like to give them their mano de orula early, so we could begin to mold them and learn how to let them walk their spiritual path the way they're designed to, because their flaws are going to be different than everybody else's flaws. It's easy to say, do not steal. It's easy to say, do not kill. It's easy to say, hey, humble yourself. But it's not okay to tell people, don't do favors for nobody, right? It's not very society friendly, right? Because you want to help people sometimes. And we want to tell people to be caressing. But sometimes we need to tell people that is not who you are. So these oduns begin to form, and we have to begin to teach children what they are. Okay, so now 0 to 25, you're learning these things. In a perfect world, you already have your mano de orula at a young age. Your parents are grooming you. They're teaching you. You're learning how to live your sign already. You already know who your guardian is, who's your ride or die. The guardian is the person that's working with you. He's the one that's giving it bowls. He's the one that's saying, hey, we need to do this. We need to make deals with this divinity, that divinity. And that's when you start to do it bowls all the time, because your Ori is connecting with your guardian. Your Ori is connecting with your spirit guides. Your Ori is strengthening at a young age, and it's nurturing. Okay, it's nurturing all the ire that's coming in, and it's pushing out all the negativity. So you begin to grow, and your mind grows. You begin to learn your trade in life, right? School. You begin to understand, your brain opens up, and you're like a sponge. You learn so quickly, and you learn a craft that is susceptible to your mano de orula. You begin to learn a craft, whether it's a doctor, you're a lawyer, whatever it is you went to school for. You begin to line yourself up. And here is the first step on why a lot of people who are older and receive their mano de orula, they have to step back. And they have to acknowledge the first step, the Ori. What are you good at? What did you come down from heaven doing? Or what did you want to do? Because anything against that is going to be it's going to be a contradiction. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So you begin to, at an older age, now you have to go back. You have to understand your ori. You gotta open up your ori, and that's why it's very important that a lot of people receive the divinity ori at an older age immediately, because they need to start to line. There's a spiritual alignment that needs to happen, and it all starts here with your head, your ori. So, for those who received their mano de arula at an older age, now it's time for us to line ourselves up, but we're already behind the power curve. We're behind the power curve for those who are older. So now, figure out who you are. Now you know what you are. You know what you need to be doing. You know what your Ori is calling for. You know what you're going to be good at. Start to line yourself up. Start to get yourself back to that. I'm not telling people to go quit their jobs, leave their significant others. I'm not telling anybody to do that, because everything will come full circle. But first, you got to figure out what's going to be aligned with your life. What's going to be aligned for you. Now, let's say that you're already in a profession and you're already in something that you know might be in contrary to your Ori. Then guess what? That's okay. That just means that we have to do it bold so that we can keep breaking that wall. Right? We got to keep doing. You're going to be doing more bowls than the average person who is following their Ori, in order for you to stay consistent with the life path and the things that you have to accomplish here on earth. That's step one, your Ori. The sponge, 0 to 25, and then we move on. Right after 0 to 25, and you're a sponge and you got a profession and you know what you're doing to a certain extent, that is when now you start your career, right? You're out of school and everything's working, everything's flowing. Your brain is shooting in all cylinders. Well, now, at the end of the day, what's next? Well, your profession is going to equal money. Your profession is going to begin to build that wealth that you need. All right? And then that's going to take you to about the 25 to 30 year mark where you're settling, you're getting stable, right? And the reason why we say 25 to 30 years, okay, is because it's going to take you 5 years to get to where you want to be. Car notes are 5 years. Your house payments, you know what I mean? You're going to get into a groove and a rhythm. And then all of a sudden it's going to be like, you know what? Now it's time to settle down, right? And once you start to get that flowing, because you're moving, man, from 0 to 25, you're already shooting, you're going to school, you're working part-time, you're trying to make money to get through school, and then all of a sudden now you have a profession, you're shooting, you're a go-getter, and now you're doing that till about 30, and then all of a sudden it's time to find stability in your life, right? And we call this, there's a 3 steps, right? We call this the Ariku or Wu, and then we talk about the Iboyuku, right? When we talk about that, we talk about ensuring that we go into a pattern in order to get to the end goal, all right? And how do we get there? Well, again, you get there from your Ori, your money, your profession. You understand your Ita, because when you get to stability, then that means that you've done everything you're supposed to do here. You're working what you're supposed to work in order for you to make money and live in this world. The stability that grows is you now understanding your mano de orula, you understanding the path that you chose for a profession in order to bring you some form of wealth. But then the wealth and the stability are also equal to family. You need to find stability in family. You need to figure out a way to now bring a descendant, to bring a child into the world, to bring somebody who's going to carry the lineage so that we can become better as people. Because the flaws that I have, I will now give to my children, so my children understand not to do what I've done. Because sometimes we're not perfect. We're not. It's not going to happen. But our flaws, people learn from. And I had this conversation even at work, where I tell people, we learn from bad leaders more than we learn from good leaders. Because bad leaders give you an emotional reaction. You feel it, and you're like, man, you're just disgusted sometimes about reaction. But good leaders, we look at them and we feel good, right? And it's like those endorphins, right? And you feel like life is great, right? But a lot of times we don't mimic the good, but we remember the bad, and that makes us stronger. So when we look for that stability and we look for those descendants, we try to instill in them values that we know worked, values that we know at the end of the day, that we need to look out for. Okay, does that make sense so far? And then when it's all said and done, we get to a place where now we are settling down. And now, from 30 to 40, you already had kids, you already got the house, you got everything settled, things are stable, and now you find yourself in a different place, in a wise place. Sometimes you'll be, grandparents. Sometimes you will be godfathers to Iles, a spiritual godfather, and you find yourself kind of meditating in a different level, and always reflecting back to your ori, coming back down to everything that you learned, all these basic stepping stones. And I know I'm rambling, but I did this video specifically because I want to remind people, and even my godchildren, I want to remind them that everything comes in steps. Everything comes with patience. All right? I find myself talking about this more often than not, so I figure why not do a video? And when I talk about your ori, I want to remind you about something else. Ori is one thing. Then you walk in your destiny through Orula is another thing. You put those two things in harmony and things will begin to roll downhill. And a good downhill. It's not I know people say uphill, but I'm saying when you're gonna get on that sled and you're gonna be like, woohoo, I'm on the Ori train, I'm on the Mano de Orula train, and then while you're passing that Mano de Orula train, you got stability. But a lot of that stuff is complemented by other things. We have to give thanks to the divinity Ori. We got to give thanks to Orula through an Ita. You have to understand what your head is, spirit guide, your Ori itself, and then your guardian, right? Then you got to go to Orula. You got to read your Ita. What is your Ita talking about? Who are you? What are you supposed to be doing? Then through that, you got to remember that the word Orisha is conduct. You got to conduct yourself accordingly to your Ita, to your Ori, to your guardian, to your spirit guides. You need to open up your ears. You need to listen more so you can find that stability in your life. And I know I could be rambling, and I could be rambling all day, but then finally, the last piece of this is always remembering your eguns. Your eguns. They're all around you. They're all around us. Everything has a spirit. A lot of people think egun. What do they think? Oh, somebody who passed away. The leaves, the trees, the grass, everything has spirit. Everything has a connection. And you connect yourself. Why? Because in your Mano de Orula, every one of your signs has iwe, has an herb, has a plant, has a stick, whatever you want to call it, right? Every one of them tells you that, hey, in your sign, this happened. And in this pataki, this happened, right? And then when we start talking about a guardian, we talk about our people who have walked our guardian's shoes, right? We talk about people who have passed away, and you hear about patakis of Chango and Ochung and Yamaya. And all that is beautiful. But they all have lessons to be learned. So let me wrap all this up. And this is a lot of information, okay? When you're born, 0 to 25, we focus on your Ori. Your Ori focuses on your guardian. It focuses on your spirit guide. It focuses on a lot of things on what road you're supposed to be walking. While you're doing that and you're learning life and you're learning a profession and you're learning how to be a man or a woman, right? You then have to focus on your Ita. Always focus on your Ita. Always focus on what your destiny is, because your Ori is tied to your destiny, which is tied to your Ita, which is tied to your Mano de Orula. You see the connection? They don't sever. Okay, but you get that 25-year grace period, right? To learn as much as you can. All of a sudden, now Orula's there, your destiny's there, you're working your profession, and then all of a sudden, poop, we need to figure out how do we stabilize it. A lot of information, and when we stabilize it. Right? And when we do our stabilization, we have to remember that it's going to be our conduct that's going to take us to where we need to be. It's going to be us tapping in a little further to our guardian and figuring out how do we give it balls. How do we do whatever we got to do so that we can find that steady plane so we can coast through life. And then while we're coasting through life, we find the person that we need in our lives in order to give us a child, in order to give us something that we have, a heritage, a culture that we can instill and we can grow and flourish. And through that, we give thanks to the Eguns, always. So at the end of the day, I look at things a little differently in life. I always look back to see, are we lined up spiritually? Because that's spiritual alignment. Ori, Orumila, through your destiny, your savior. At the end of the day, Orisha, your conduct. And through that, the Eguns. In order for us to fulfill and have alignment, we need to understand those things. And it gets even more complicated when you become crowned or you become a Babalao. Because then there's more signs that need to line you up, better understandings at that. So it gets more complicated, but it gives you a thorough understanding. If done right, good godparents will give you such a thorough understanding of who you are and what you're capable of, even at an older age, that you're going to have to go back to Ori and get lined up again. And that's what the priesthood and the priestesshood is going to do. So with that said, hopefully I bring some clarity. Hopefully that clears up some things, because there is a method behind it all. Behind the patakis and the stories and your signs and the do's and the don'ts and be careful with this and be careful with that, there is a logical flow of energy, information, and how we conduct ourselves in this faith. So now, again, for those who are older and starting from scratch, getting their mano de orula, you're behind the power curve. Understand your ita, understand your ori, understand your guardian, understand the eguns, work your way down. Understand, once you understand all that, if, let's say, again, I'm not telling you to quit your job, I'm not telling you to leave your significant others, I'm not telling any of that. But I am telling you that there is a method to the madness, and there's a reason why we have a pattern. All right, and the pattern is successful. The pattern is there. You just got to listen. And everyone's situation is different. Everybody's Odun is going to guide them differently. That's why Babalaos have a challenge in front of them. It's not about just, hey, give me some money for an ebo. Hey, give me some money so I can go crown you a santo. Hey, give me some money so I can go do an Ifa. No. There's more to it. And I want to instill that in you. So please, take my words, understand my words. Understand that sometimes we have to do that spiritual alignment and we got to get back down to basics. Especially for those who are struggling. Even after they received the mano de orula and the warriors, and let's say things were going fine at a certain point and then things started going downhill. Always go back and remember this video and listen to it again. Align yourself, know your ita, know your guardian, understand who the eguns are, your spirit guides particularly, conduct yourself accordingly, which means to your ita, the things that you can and cannot do. Humble yourself, because I don't care what sign you have from the 256, you got to humble yourself. And walk the path. And you're going to see how things just switch. Because they're going to do that next ebo, and then everything is just going to line itself up because you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. The ebo is going to do their thing, which an ebo, again, at the end of the day, is your guardian, which is dividending out. You know what I mean? Hey, leave my guy alone, right? Or leave my girl alone. That's an ebo. That's an ebo. At the end of the day, let's do things more methodically. So with that said, I don't like doing long videos. I know everybody's time here is precious. But with that said, Iburu, Iboya, Ibucheche, Cyberland, always here for you guys. My wife and I are always looking at the emails. We're always looking at the comments. We're always going to get back to you. But always remember, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Faith. So you have to be able to go through the motions. There is things that we have to all do strategically, even when we know we can do things immediately. Take that with you. Hey, la.regla.de.ifa@gmail.com. That's la.regla.de.ifa@gmail.com. Iburu, Iboya, Ibucheche, Cyberland. Again, it's always our pleasure. Signing off.